Hello, this is Keith Hall, and welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about a number of different areas within Excel 365. And basically we're going to be learning about how we can combine index and match together, along with applying multiple conditions to find our answer, how we can apply error checking to our function in case our index and match does not find a match. We're going to talk about data validation lists, how to set these up. We're also going to talk about conditional formatting. So basically, whenever I make a selection over here, you can see conditional formatting has been set up so whenever it finds the correct answer over here, it's going to highlight the entire row. So let's find another example. As you can see, it finds the row that we're looking for. So we're trying to match, in this case, on department and role together. And what we're going to be returning back is the salary for that department and role. So let's start with data validation lists. So how do we set these up? In Excel 365, it's rather quite simple. Once we set it up, it automatically removes the duplicates. So in order to set up a data validation list, to get this list of unique departments from this range here, all we have to do is go up to data validation, select data validation. What we want to do is we want to select a list. So once we select the list, in this case, we're looking for bringing back the unique departments in our data range. We're going to put the data range where we're going to find that. So in this case, the data range is in column H in this particular example. And what it does, even though you see duplicates here, you see HR multiple times, IT multiple times, what Excel 365 does, it brings back the unique values for that range that we selected. So that's how you set up a data validation list. And I basically did the same thing for role. I'm going to go through the same menu item, and I'm going to select the role column, and it pulls out the unique values in that column. So also too, I want to let you know, how did I get this data set? It's very simple with ChatGPT. Now it's up to you on what option you want to select, either Gemini, which is through Google, or Copilot, which is through Microsoft, or even OpenAI. So you can choose whatever ChatGPT version that you want. And all you have to do is go in there and ask it specific questions. And all I did was ask it to generate me a data set regarding employees. I asked it to bring back a number of specific columns and number of rows. In this case, it was 25 rows. And I also asked it to put it in a CSV format so I could easily copy it and bring it back into Excel. So that's how I got this data set generated. So we explained the data validation list. Now let's go over briefly conditional formatting. So basically how you set this up is you select the range that you want to conditionally format. So in this case, I already set it up, and I'll explain to you how this all works. But what you want to do is you want to go up to Home, Conditional Formatting, and since I already have a rule set up, I would go to Manage Rules. But if you wanted to start from scratch, you would go to New Rule. So let's go into Manage Rules. I want to find all the conditional formatting I set up for this worksheet. And this is the conditional formatting that I set up. So I selected edit rule. So basically, when you go and set this up as a new rule, you will basically come to this dialog box. And what you want to do is you want to select use a formula to determine which cells to format. So before I explain this formula, which I'll explain over here on the right-hand side, but once you set up your formula, you will want to select format, and you select the formatting that you wanted. Now, in this particular case, the only format that I set was for the fill color. And I selected my color here, and this is the active color that's selected for the conditional format. So that's how that's done. So let's cancel out of this, and let's explain this formula here, how this works. So in my conditional formatting, since I selected this entire range of data here, okay, that means that once the conditional formatting is equal to true for a particular cell, it's going to highlight it. And this conditional formatting formula, it will check every single cell within the range that I select. So what does this and mean here? So let's go through this step by step. And means that whatever I use, let's go up to the formula bar. Whatever I set up as a condition, both these conditions, since I only set up two, both these conditions must be equal to true in order for the conditional formatting to take place. So let's go through this as the first cell. So what is H7? H7 points to the first, let's say, which is the department. So H7, why do I have a $ before the H and not before the 7? Because what I want to do is for each cell within this range, I want to fix the department to be in this column always, no matter what. So if once Excel looks at this cell, F7, that means it's going to ask, is H7 equal to B7, which is going to be fixed. B7 is this here, here. So when I select sales, it's going to look at this ID column first because that's the first cell within the range that I set. And it's going to ask, is H7 equal to B7? In this particular case, it is. So that means that Excel is then, once that is true, it's going to, after this comma, it's going to check this formula. Now is I7 going to equal to C7, which is this? So in this particular case, it isn't. So it's not going to format this cell, and it's going to continue this process, all the cells in this row, and it's then going to come down to the next row and perform the same formula check. And once it gets down to this particular row, it's going to say, okay, is H7, which is this, equal to B7? In this case, it is. Okay, that's test number 1. Test number 2 is I7 going to be equal to C7? And since both of these conditions are true, now it's going to format this cell in this range. And it's going to continue on through this row, and it's going to find out that this condition, these formulas, are going to both return true, and that's why this entire cell range or entire row is highlighted. So hopefully that clears up how you could set up a conditional formatting rule with the formula and how you could highlight individual cells or entire rows. So we got that done. Now let's dissect this formula, index and match. So let's hide this. Let's escape out of here. Let's hide this. And what I'm doing here with these plus signs, I'm grouping columns. So how do I set up a group? Basically, what I did was I highlighted the rows or columns in this case, and I wanted to group these so I could easily expand or collapse this section of the spreadsheet. Basically, I want to hide these columns. So basically, you would go up to data, over here, over to outline, and I would select group. And if you wanted to ungroup it, you could do that. So that's basically how I set up grouping. You select the columns that you want to collapse or uncollapse or show or hide, and then you would go up to grouping. You could do the same thing with rows. If you wanted to group rows, same thing, highlight the rows and come up to data, then outline. Okay, let's do that. So now let's, first of all, let's go from the inside out. So let's first learn what match is doing. So I'm going to go over here. That's index. Let's see. This is match. So what does match do? Match is a function in Excel that returns the position of a specific value within a given range. Okay, it doesn't return the value itself, meaning it's not going to return Emily Davis. What it's going to do is return the relative position within the value of an array. So if I select this array here, this range here, what it's going to do is going to come down here and return the position within that range. Okay, and you'll see how this works down here. So let's learn about the argument. So the first argument to the match function is a lookup value. What are we looking for? And you'll see with this example down here. So the lookup value is the value you want to find within an array. The lookup array, okay, the range of cells or array where you want to search for your lookup value. The third argument is optional, but it specifies how Excel matches the lookup value with the values in the lookup array. In this case, this example here, I'm going to pass it 0 because I want the exact match. So let's go through this. I'm using a match function and I want to find Cherry, okay, within this range here. This range here is going to be the first column within this data range here. So what I do is first argument, I pass it a string argument. It doesn't have to be a string. It could be a reference to a cell too. In this case, I'm hard coding the word cherry. So we're going to look for cherry within this range here. Once it finds that, in this particular case, we want an exact match. That's why I pass it the optional argument of 0 because I want an exact match. I want to exactly match cherry to the values in this range here. Once it finds that, it's going to find the relative position of that. In this case, we have a range of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows within this range. And it's going to, since cherry is the third position, that's why it returned the number 3. Okay, so that's how the match function works, basically in a simple format. So let's hide that. Now let's go into the index function. Let's find out how this works. The index function in Excel is used to return a value of a cell at a specific position within a given range or an array. Okay, you'll see what this means in a second. So index function has certain arguments. The first argument is the range. It's the range of cells on an array constant. And what that means is we're going to be looking for to return a certain value instead of the relative position, a certain value within the array. Row count, row number is the next argument. This is the row number in the array for which to return a value. And the third argument is an optional argument, okay? But we're going to be using it today in this instance, or at least in this example, and you'll see why we're doing this. What I want to return for this range of cells that we're going to be selecting is I want to return the entire match or entire row, which in this case is that. I want to return all values. So this is why I press the 0. Now, as you can see, the column number in an array for which to return the value. If it is omitted, the function returns the value in a specific row. But in this case, since I'm passing 0 to it, I'm going to return the entire row of values. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But let's look at this argument, this index function. So what this is doing is we're passing an array. Okay, I'm selecting the entire range here because I want to return all values in a row for my match. If I only wanted to say return the word cherry, then my range would be just this column here. Okay, now I hard coded this value, number 3, but you'll see in a second by adding the match function within here, you'll see how that works. But I hard coded the value 3. So basically, what it's doing is looking at this array. Let's find the row number 3. 1, 2, 3. And since I want the third argument is 0, I want to return all values in all columns. So that's why the result set is all 3 values here for this specific row. Hopefully that gives you a better, clear image of how the index function works. So now let's go into a more complex index and match, and that is use and match with multiple conditions to it. So let's go over here. I set up something here to make it easier for you to understand. So we got a different data set. We got department, region, and what we want to return is a sales value for the HR department and for the region of West. So basically what this is doing is it's searching through this range here. Department, let's find HR. We also want it to return where HR has a region of West. So let's basically scan through this. Here it is, HR West, and it returns the value of 5,500, which it does here. So let's use this in an example. So here's the array. Okay, first let's go into the match function. Okay, the match function here, let's copy this here. And let's paste it down here so you can see what's happening. You'll see why I'm choosing a value of 1. Remember, in the match function, the first argument in the match function is the value that we want to look for in this array that we select here. Now, let's go to how this all works. So let's go back up here, and I set up some helper columns to show you how this is actually working. So if I dissect this here, let's highlight this, see what it does. It returns a bunch of trues and falses. So what it's doing is taking first, let's escape out of here. Let's take AB range AB7, which is right here, and this is the range, okay? And then does any value within this range equal X7? In this case, X7 is equal to HR. So if any of these values in this range equal X7, it's going to either, in this case, it's going to look for a true or false, and it returns a true or false. So that's what this is doing here. Let's go up here again to the formula. Remember what this is doing. Returns a bunch of trues and falses, as you can see right above the formula bar. Now, if I'll show you a trick, if you press F9, it returns all that. It automatically highlights the answer. I press Control C to copy, escape out of it, and I just basically pasted it through here. So what that does is returns, let's see, I have to put an equal sign in front of it. Okay, so that's what that is doing. So let's go up here to see what this is. You see it has a bunch of curly brackets around the result set and a bunch of semicolons separating each value that it returns. So what this is an array constant, as you can read here. It says array constants are written inside of curly braces. For example, if we have this an array constant with curly brackets with 1 comma 2 comma 3 so forth, is a horizontal array. So basically it would put this array in a horizontal fashion. If instead I put semicolons, it's going to be in a vertical array, just like this. It'll put it in one column and it'll separate each value in the array to each individual row. So that's what that is. So again, let's go back here. Okay, does AB, the range AB, or here, AB7 through AB18, does any of these values equal HR? And if it does, it's going to return a true. If not, it's going to return a false. We're going to do the same process for the second condition here, right here. And as you can see, it returns a bunch of trues and falses. If I press F9, let me escape F9, and there you go. I could copy this array constant and copy it over here. That's what I did over here. Now, let's go back to the formula again. What this match function is doing, it's going to return a separate result set for this condition and a separate one for this. And it's going to multiply the two together. Now, what does Excel do when you multiply a true, a Boolean value with another Boolean value? Let me show you over here. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the formula AF7, which is this, and I'm going to multiply it by the same value in the next column, but in the same row, which is AG7, okay? And it's going to multiply a true times a false. In this case, it's going to return a 0. So that's what Excel does. When it multiplies two Boolean values together, it's going to come up with either a 0 or 1. The only time that it's going to come up with a 1 is when the two values equal the true. In this case, this is it. So when it does that for that particular row, now you can see why I'm looking for, in the match function, the value of 1. I'm looking for the value of 1 in this case, and that's that. So what it's going to do is it's going to return a value of 1. And then match, remember what match, it returns the relative position within the array, okay, for that match. So where did it find? It found 1. It found it in 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to return 4, okay, to this match function. So if I highlight this, you'll see what happens. I have to do that. See the 4 up here? If I press F9, see up here, it returns 4 to the match function. Okay, since it returned 4, now it's going to go back to the index function. Okay, the index function is going to be AD7, or yeah, index, it's going to return that, and it's going to return a 4 to that array. And once it returns the 4 to that array, which is this, let's go back here so you can see what's going back here. This is the array, and it's going to return the array AD count. This is the array, so it's going to go down from 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's how that works, and that's why it returns the value of 5,500 for that. Hopefully, all this made sense. And if it doesn't, please leave a comment and let me know if I can explain it clearer to you. But anyways, that's how we can apply multiple conditions in an index match function combination, and then find our answer. So basically, that's what this formula is doing. It's going to find a department that we select, to find a row that we select, and once we have a match for that in this data set that we select, in this case, the index is selecting K7, which because we only want to return the salary, once it finds that match, it's going to return the value here. And that's how that all works. Now, why do I have an error, if error function around this? So let's show you what happens if I don't have the if error function here. Let's go over here. Okay, we know there's a match here for sales and executive. So we got the sales and executive, and return was 62,000. So let's find out. Here's an example. What we're trying to do is we're trying to find a match on sales and analysis. We go through each row here, each column. Is there a sales and an analyst in this combination of data? Since it cannot find that match, it returns an error, an error to this index and match function combination. If we don't want to show that error, we could use the if error function, surround the index and match function, and it will return whatever value that we want. In this case, if this index and match function returns an error, we want a more descriptive error to the end user, and that's why we use the if error function on the outside of the index and match. I know this was a long tutorial, but hopefully this explained a lot of different things that Excel can do for your data and analysis. Again, I want to thank you for stopping by. Please comment and share this video. And as always, subscribe to my channel so you could always be updated on more tutorials that I put out once a week. Thanks again. You have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.